the water that comes out of wells, it's clean, it's fine. No, it's not, but it gets dumped. And so what we believe is something very, very simple. Number one, let's bust the government monopoly. And that's already happening. We're not the people starting it.
Welcome back to the Money Seat Podcast. My guest today is Riggs Eckelberry. Riggs is the CEO of OriginClear, a company that's innovating in the water space. Riggs, welcome to the show.
Gabe, it's a pleasure to be on Money Seat. Thank you.
Riggs, when I first heard that you are starting a company that deals with water or that you are innovating in the water space, I kind of did a head scratcher. I said, water, what is there to innovate in the water space? I have all these assumptions about how water works, and it's all very boring. I mean, tell me where I'm wrong, but isn't water just owned by the government? The government builds and owns these giant reservoirs, and the reservoirs have these like 100-year-old pipes that take the water from the reservoir to my house. Like, what is there to innovate? How can anyone make money? What is it that I don't understand about water?
Well, Gabe, since you're in the Bay Area, you know that there's been all kinds of issues with droughts and fires and horrible things like that. And generally, there is too much water in some places, not enough in others. And the big problem is that the water infrastructure, because of course the government is here to help you, right? The government infrastructure is completely underwater. It's the unmet demand is approaching $100 billion a year for infrastructure. It's not being met. Why? Because, again, to your point, there's not a lot of awareness. People think everything's fine. There's, that sewage plant down by the river, if you live in New York City. And, you know, what really politicians, of course, they deal with issues that voters care about. So if the voters aren't like too excited about water, not much is going to be done. For example, last week, the Biden administration traveled to Pittsburgh to inaugurate a huge clean water initiative, $6 billion, woohoo, drop in the bucket. And I use that term advisedly, of course. But the problem really is this. The original paradigm of central water treatment is a very poor one. Think of mainframes. I'm old enough to have, tried to book time on a mainframe. We're waiting in line to get access to that calculating power. PCs are seemingly less efficient because when you're not using them, they're just sitting there, but they're available for you. They serve your needs. And the similar thing in water, we have the centralization where just everything gets sent to the central place. And as a result, no one gets good service. The real problem is this: 90% of all water demand is by industry and agriculture. And that is what is overburdening the system. Now, incoming clean water, water comes from places that the government should continue to control. We're not saying all experiments to privatize incoming water have been failures because inevitably somebody gets the idea that they want more profit and they start wrecking the water systems. It's happened in America, it's happened in the UK and elsewhere. No, what we're talking about here is the real big challenge for the government is how to treat all that dirty water. Well, why not have the people who create the dirty water clean their own dirty water and all of a sudden relieve that burden and you service people like you and me?
Okay, I got this. So if I understand correctly, what you're advocating for is don't spend all this money cleaning the water. 90% of it is going to go to agriculture, industry anyway. Let the water just come to your house, clean it on site at the point of demand. Say clean it in your house. So maybe like have a device in your garage or something that will clean the water for you.
Well, but remember, this is only the 10% users, right? What we're focusing on is 90% users. We want industry, because that's, human waste is not that toxic. But industrial waste, agricultural waste, look at the rivers, the state of our rivers in America has not improved in 5 years. It's all algae choked and so forth from all the phosphates and nitrogen. Well, that's agriculture not cleaning its effluents and just dumping it. And industry is dumping dioxane and all these Teflon type things that I'm not going to get into. But the point is that these are really challenging pollutants And they should be treated right at the point where they're created, not let them just go, oh, send them over the fence. Okay, government will take care of it. Well, government doesn't take care of it. The quality of our water is decreasing badly. In California, every single aquifer is hydrocarbon contaminated. Every single one. Why? Because of lax enforcement. So we'll just, the water that comes out of wells, it's clean, it's fine. No, it's not, but it gets dumped. And so what we believe is something very, very simple. Number one, let's bust the government monopoly. And it's already happening. We're not the people starting it. But the whole idea of businesses doing their own treatment is happening. PepsiCo just committed to recycling 80% of their processed water. Well, they can't recycle 80% of their processed water if they send it to the city. It's gone. So they have to treat it themselves so they can reuse it. Now, that's good news. Why? Because now you have more reuse. So you're getting more mileage out of the fresh water that's so precious. So 3 really good reasons why businesses should do this. Well, the first one, of course, is that it gets them off the system, relieves the system, which is a big, big deal for us. Number 2 is they, when they're treating their own water, they have control over their own costs because water and sewage rates are rising faster than the cost of college tuition and healthcare, just taking off. So they get to control their costs, great. Thirdly, they get to reuse their water, thus reducing their incoming water costs, and it's beneficial for the water table for the rest of us. And the final point, which is the 4th point, that is kind of a soft one, but businesses don't like to be under the thumb of the government. And if they can just get do the little thing on the side there and not be harassed all the time, as long as they meet permitting requirements, they're happy. So they like it. And that is the trend. It's been going on for some time. Now it's becoming a big deal. There's unicorns showing up in the space. There were technology issues because when you're taking big equipment down to small, you have to figure out advanced, compact technologies and so forth. But those have been solved. Our own company has patents in this area, so that has been solved. So it's very feasible to do your own water treatment. Now, who is doing it? It's starting with the most, the people who have to do it, the people who are being fined for not having water treatment, the people who are being, like many breweries. There was a case study in the East Bay where a brewery was making too much effluent and the city just wouldn't take it. And they had to constantly truck their effluent to another county. Well, that's stupid, right? So these people are the first wave, the people who have to have it. The next wave is the people for whom it sounds like a good idea, but they don't want to put up $500,000. And for them, we have this new thing called water as a service, which is the next wave. There we are.
Got it. So I think now it's starting to make sense. So basically, OriginClear provides an ability for companies to clean their own wastewater, as opposed to just dumping it and letting someone else deal with it.
Exactly.
I love it. So tell me a little bit more. Tell me more about the technology. I believe it has something to do with algae. Is that correct?
Well, that was okay. This is a very interesting story. It's an origin story, not to make a pun, but this company, we're the 16-year overnight success. I don't know if you've heard about that, but most in overnight success is you dig under the covers and you find they've been doing it for years, and
correct,
with lots of disasters and horrible things, and now they're sitting pretty. I can't believe how long it took. But anyway, we started as Origin Oil, and the idea was to make biofuels from algae, right? Because all petroleum used to be algae. It didn't used to be dinosaurs. There were not enough dinosaurs in the world to supply all that oil. It was algae, great, huge masses of algae that grew to absorb all that CO2 back then. There was way too much CO2 in the air. Algae eats CO2 very efficiently. And then when the CO2 levels dropped, the algae died and eventually was covered over. And, if you million years later, you've got petroleum. Okay. So we launched the company on the basis of let's do that now. Let's create fuel in the present using algae, which is a carbon neutral activity. And it was great. I was on all the top shows, back when there was mainstream media. Remember those days? Yeah.
Yes.
Fox News, all this stuff. Stuart Varney called me Algae Man. I'll call you Algae Man. And it was a lot of fun. And then the oil industry came up with fracking, which dropped the price from $120 a barrel down to 50 or less. And we looked at each other like, we can't make this work. It's overnight, algae became a science experiment, and I had a public company to run. So what we did was we pivoted into water. Our first technology was basically the same technology used to harvest algae is used to remove solids from the sewage. Okay, we did that for a while. But the problem with the water industry, as I soon found out, is that they are technology phobic. They don't want new technology for a variety of reasons, including that, public health, you might screw up. So they're very conservative. And we found out that it was way too long a path to commercialize. And that's when we started creating more of a commercial approach to the whole problem versus a technology one. Now, one of the companies we created is called Modular Water Systems, and they create these pods, a patented system for making pods that you can deliver to a brewery or a housing development or a trailer park, drop in place, plug it in, and now it's treating water. So that's a really efficient way to solve the problem, because I may say, oh, it's great for businesses to do their own water treatment, but they don't have water treatment experts on site. So what do? You make it super simple so that literally a janitor can run it. And that's how we've done it. So we have a technology approach, but more important than that is really the commercial approach. What we did is we acquired an engineering company in 2015, which made us smart. In 2018, we created Modular Water. In 2020, we created this new thing, Water on Demand, which is a water as a service concept where you, Gabe, don't have to come up with the capital for your own in-house water treatment system. You just sign on the dotted line, you get one of our machines, and you pay by the gallon, just like you're used to. You stay on the meter, but it's our meter, not the city's. I was speaking to a reporter yesterday, and he said, oh, you're a distributed utility, which is kind of geeky, but it's kind of true, right? So the idea is to create micro utilities out there that operate just like utilities do, but for local businesses. And then we took those three companies, the engineering company, the pod company, and the water as a service company, packaged them together, and now we're in the middle of going onto the Nasdaq as part of one of these blank check companies acquiring it. And so this is our first baby, and now he's grown up and he's going off to college, and we're so happy for him. And what's great is that we are the only people in water as a service who have opened it up to regular investors. And that's the interesting part. Because if you look at, what are your opportunities to invest in water? You can either buy municipal bonds, you can invest in a big water company like Veolia, American Water Works, or there's some water rights things you can do. There's on the Chicago board, but not a lot. And it's too bad, because water is a huge, huge asset, and of course essential to life. And the water services industry all by itself is $1 trillion industry worldwide. So it's big business. So how come you and I can't invest in it? And the truth is that people are already doing water as a service, but it's being funded entirely by private equity funds or venture capitalists. We decided to attract regular investors into these funds to pay for these machines that end up going on site to service these customers on a paper gallon basis, and they get residuals, just like those oil wells that people like to invest in, but it's water.
And how has the reception been so far from investors, from the companies using it?
Right. So it's a great deal because, number one, the companies using it, they have a fully maintained system, it's hands off, and they just pay on the meter. everything's fine. In other words, we virtualized water treatment where you could be sending it to the city, but you're sending it to this machine, but it's the same basic idea, which is no muss, no fuss. You don't have to deal with the complications. So from the company point of view, it's great. From the investor's point of view, here's the problem we have in today's economy, which is all assets are being manipulated all the time. Gas, oil, gold. I mean, how many times have I put money in gold and it went nowhere? Like, you know what? Gold is supposed to be great. Bitcoin's doing great right now, and I think it's going to keep doing great, but who knows? They have crashes too. And of course, the stock market, if it weren't for NVIDIA and a couple other companies, it'd be no good. So the people like you and me who are in the middle class wonder, where do we put our hard-earned money? Well, find an asset that is early stage, that is not being meddled with, that's stable. Demand is pretty steady for water, grows all the time. And we've securitized it. We've created a security that you can invest in. And that's what we've gone. Now, it's not listed on a stock exchange. Perhaps it will someday. So right now what you do is you go to OriginClear and you click on the Invest Now button, and you get to, your money is put into the water on demand capital base to go ahead and buy these water systems, and you get a percentage of profits, and then you get equity in OriginClear, and you get equity in the new offshoot water on demand, which is scheduled to go on the Nasdaq. It's a great deal, and it's extraordinarily generous because it's early, and that is what makes it very compelling.
Right now, what is the timeline for the SPAC going on the stock exchange and the investment becoming liquid?
Right. Well, OriginClear itself is of course already public. Now, it's a penny stock, so some people sneer at penny stocks, but let me tell you, when a penny stock takes off, there's a lot of multiples, right? So it's harder for a $300 stock to go 10 times than it is for a penny stock to go to 10 cents, right? So people don't realize that penny stocks are interesting if they do well. Well, the company Water on Demand that we created, which we're still a majority owner of, it will become a Nasdaq company, we believe. We filed with the SEC, and it's happening right now. And it will have capital to go ahead and implement this on a large scale. So it will obviously, if all works out as we plan, it will be a Nasdaq stock. And like I say, we're giving people shares in OriginClear, the parent company, a penny stock, but also shares in Water on Demand, which presumably will be a Nasdaq company. So we're talking about public company stock either way.
Got it. And speak a little bit more about the technology. So right now, if a company would, let's say, implement this product, is it cost positive for them? Like, yes, there's a lot of good ethical and ecological reasons to implement it. Does it make financial sense?
It does. First of all, on the rates, the rates they pay are comparable to what they pay the city, but they don't hyperinflate because you have your own machine, and it has a built-in. Yes, our contracts with the end user, the business, they do have a CPI, but it's far less than what cities are doing to users right now. So it's number one is controlled costs. Number two, they get, once they do it, many people aren't doing it yet, but they can recycle their water, and that way they reduces their water bill incoming. And those two features are important financial considerations. Now, there's another one, which is that there's businesses out there that are unable to get a sewage connection. For example, right now there's a huge boom in housing developments north of Dallas, Texas, between Dallas and the Oklahoma border. They're just sprouting up all over the place. Too fast for utilities to catch up because it takes 20 years to build a utility, right? So we're dropping in these pods. So they look just like storage pods, literally. Those things in the driveway. We drop them in. They have to prepare a pad, concrete pad, water and electricity. That's all they got to do. Semi comes along, unloads it, plugs it in, and one day it's up and running. So that is a wonderful thing for a developer because now they don't have to worry about sewage. And all kinds of properties that are very low price because they're out of reach of sewage now become viable. It's a whole new game. And as you know, there's a lot of urban outmigration going on. And so you've got, right, there's 150,000 water systems in America. These are municipal, private, or whatever. Some of them have as few as 3,000 customers. Well, now you get a bunch of migration into these rural areas. They get completely overwhelmed. And so we are here to enable those migrants to get their water treatment, whether they're a housing development or a mobile home park or a car dealership that just wants to relocate to somewhere cheaper, breweries, you name it. There you become self-sufficient for water treatment.
I love it. Tell me, it seems like this would really ease the burden on governments as well to build infrastructure and to build infrastructure, on a certain time scale. Have governments been receptive and, do they offer subsidies and other types of support?
Well, as you know, solar has been fought by a lot of the energy providers, but we were very surprised to find that that's not the case with the water providers because they're completely underwater. First of all, they're not a profit organization typically, whereas energy utilities typically are. So they're like, if you want to treat the water, go for it, dude. I mean, more power to you. So generally, they are happy about it. There are subsidy programs available, slowly growing. It's kind of not happening quickly. Right now, we're relying on the fact that it just makes a lot of sense economically. Companies do care about the environment, but their pocketbook comes first. I hate to break that to you, Gabe, but that's that's how it is. So if they can get a benefit, for example, our pods, because they create opportunities for reuse, that is a source of ESG ratings for that user because water reuse is a ESG rating on the ESG rating index. So the benefits are there if they want it. But right now it's, this is very early days and the stuff that's being adopted is really being adopted by the people who have to do it. They got no choice. They got to do it. And, but that's big. Modular Water, our pod company, it grew, 7 times from 2019 to 2023. So, just taking off like crazy, just working with the people who have to have it. What we believe is that once we fully implement water on demand, which is the water as a service, that will broaden the market tremendously because all of a sudden there's no more financial issue. There's no more capital issue, right? You don't have to get an SBA loan or whatever. They just sign on a dotted line and it just becomes another monthly bill. And that, I believe, is going to turn it into a real tornado of adoption.
And I know that we don't want to get into, predictions of future performance and that kind of thing, but what is the market looking like? Because it sounds like it's not just the US. You could potentially have a large international market as well. But, where's the ceiling for you guys?
Well, that as much as 80% of all sewage internationally is not treated at all. It's just dumped. And much of the problems are right in our neighbor to the south in Mexico. There's a lot of just plain old dumping going on. So that, of course, is terrible for the health and well-being of the community and so forth. And it has to be fixed. So there's a pent-up business here that's larger. Right now, it's $1 trillion industry, but it could be $4 or $5 trillion worldwide if you do more water treatment. Let's take India, for example. India has almost no water infrastructure. We're talking about sewage. You literally have human beings in the sewage pits digging this stuff out and often dying from sewage gases. It's pretty terrible. Well, is India going to spend $100 billion on sewage? No, not going to happen. But they could implement these pods at businesses and housing communities all over the place and just 1,000 points of light and you're done. Now, it's not effortless. Somebody's got to pay for it. So you have to perhaps put in place some regulations with teeth and so forth. But India is a growing country, and it's doing very well. And they do want to treat their water. So this is a solution that makes sense for them. And it makes sense all over the place. Miami-Dade County right now has over 100,000 septic tanks. And those leak and they create bacteria problems and this and that. And they want to now spend $8 billion putting out sewage pipes to all these locations. Well, it's going to take 20 years, tear up all the streets, and it's not going to be 8 billion. It'll be 15 or 20 billion. Well, why not just do a rebate program and let those houses get their own self-treating water system, a little closed circuit, and you're done. So that philosophy, I believe, is going to become the new normal in the decade to come. What investors can do now is they can play with an early player. We're one of the few pure plays in this water as a service. And we're the only ones that are open to outside investment by regular people. We've been raising money from accredited investors, which is the 1%, but we're about to open a crowdfunding open to anybody. And so really it's going to become a mass adoption thing and you get to participate.
I love it. Tell us more about the crowdfunding option. Is it on one of the typical websites like WeFunder or Start Engine or something similar?
Similar to Start Engine, it will be the portal will be Manhattan Street Capital. My good friend Rod Turner is amazing, and so we haven't filed it yet. So this is forward looking, but we do intend to have a crowdfunding offering very soon, and get on the list by again going to the invest button at OriginClear.com. And I believe the minimum is going to be just $250. So it'll get you, a share in OriginClear and what's called a warrant, which is an option to buy another share at the same price, which is kind of like your little pocket upside, because the stock price goes up, then you go ahead and you buy the warrant. So it's basically a double opportunity, roughly, and that's a great mechanism because it's public shares, and you help float the boat. Meanwhile, the accredited investors, these are the ones who get the dividends and so forth, and it's more of a commitment, but it's also much more of structured in their benefit, because much as we want to democratize investment, deep pockets do rule. Truth.
Yeah, I can't argue with that. But Riggs, I mean, I love this technology because it sounds like you're cleaning up the environment. You are providing a very valuable resource, a valuable commodity. You're making it more accessible, right? Easier to reach. You are offering this to investors so investors can invest. They can help you on this mission to clean up the environment and help our water infrastructure. So, I mean, I love it. I think this looks great from a variety of different angles. So congrats to you on the success you have had at OriginClear.
Well, Gabe, thank you very much. We got a lot to go still. And one of the things that we are famous for is making sure that our investors do come out okay. We don't I've been an early investor and I've been crammed before, and I hate that stuff. So the investors who stick with us, we do our very best to take care of them. So we're going to welcome your investors into the OriginClear family.
What is the ticker symbol that is currently on the stock exchange, and what will be the ticker symbol of the SPAC?
So currently, the penny stock is OCLN, OriginClear. That's on the OTC, and then over the counter. And then the future Nasdaq company, we've reserved the ticker symbol WODI, Water on Demand Inc. WODI.
Absolutely fantastic. I'll put those into the show notes. Where can people learn more? Where can people reach out to you?
Every week I do a Thursday night CEO briefing where we just let it all hang out. We talk about what's happening in the company, latest developments, the macro stuff that's happening. And just when you go to OriginClear, you'll get a chance to sign up for it. And we welcome people. If they don't make it to the Thursday night briefing, there's a replay they can watch. And those are popular.
Fantastic. Riggs Eckelberry, CEO for OriginClear, thank you very much for spending time with us today.
Such a pleasure, Gabe, and have a nice weekend over in the Bay Area.
Hey, thanks for joining us for another episode of the Money Seed Podcast. Please remember to click like and subscribe. It really helps spread the message to other investors, and it helps attract new viewers to the show. We appreciate your support. Thanks very much.